Without education, there would be no Kemet. Did y'all hear Dr. Theophile Obinga just say that? ETM Hotep, welcome to the Sesh channel. This is your brother Wujau Menib Edi Ma'at. Today is Friday, finally Friday, the weekend, first day of the week's end, October 14th, 2022. Time is flying. We are in October. Halloween is around the corner for those who pay attention and celebrate Halloween. So yes, again, welcome to the Sesh channel. Yes. Appreciate anybody who's tuned in. Just want to give a little bit of time for people to tune in who's going to be tuned. So you'll hear me running my mouth just a little bit. Shout out everybody. So far, the early birds had the brother Chavis, Hotep, Philightentis is in the building. Of course, Sanat Imikat Aku Kenshaya Kinyi, brother Jehudi Ma'at. Man, let me tell you, boy, you all have to subscribe to Jehudi Ma'at's channel. Jehudi Ma'at, if you could put the link to your channel in the chat. And go through his archives. People sleep on Jehudi Ma'at's archives, because if you watch his archives, it's a mixture of things, but man, it's a lot of good stuff, and it's entertaining and educational at the same time, and so Jehudi has definitely got skills on slowing conversations down, pinpointing things, but then also making it more entertaining and exciting. So definitely check it out. So we got Jehudi in the building. Brother Donnie Williams is in the building. Tahuti Wasir Ma'at Ra Seneferu is in the building. Asar Imhotep is in the building. He says, what in the blood clot? And I'm sure he is probably saying that for the title. So again, let me just, as you all can see, this is the Ancient Egyptian Grammar series of videos. This is what we do on this channel. It's all throughout our archives. We've been talking about the language, of course, which was the original purpose of this channel. And so we've been talking about all these things that you see currently for years. So it's a lot of repetitive redundancy going on, but sometimes it's out of necessity, and it's always good to review and to repeat things, especially for new people who are becoming aware and showing interest. All right, but I always like to remind people to go into our archives because sometimes we'll dedicate a whole show to a more narrowed subject matter, and you'll get more information there. And then, of course, ultimately, I would always encourage people to register for the classes, the language classes. We have them on Sabre University. I'm sure Emicat is going to be posting links to all of them. If that's what I would encourage you to do. But these are it's kind of concise crash brief lessons, crash courses, and whatnot on different aspects of the ancient Egyptian language. All right. But anyway, the title of this one is an ancient Egyptian grammar series, Rodney Kimmett Grammar, Concordance, Linguistic Homosexuality. All right. So I know that's gonna people like what? Linguistic homosexuality. What? Which I will make it make sense. All right, but we're gonna get into it in a second. Finish shouting people out. We got the brother Robert Rand in the building. Who else? Already said Chavis. So if you're tuned in already, make yourself known so we'll know who's all in the building. All right, share the video, especially the people who you feel that might be interested. And of course, this is being recorded. It's gonna be in the archives. All right. So I'm gonna get started shortly. It is 7:22, so I'm gonna get started shortly. Just want to give everybody a chance to come on in. So yeah, that's the title. Just like that, linguistic homosexuality. Like what? What is that about? All right. So now, just a quick review. The past two videos have been kind of along the lines of what's going to be discussed today, of how it's going to be discussed today. And so taking out little bits of teaching information that's used in the classes and things, and sharing them in a more concise way, but anchoring them more so into the recent conversations. And and so from the first show, there was a lot of good feedback that I got of people, and showing that that's people's preference. Yes, people like to be entertained. Yes, entertainment involves, or the attraction is to drama and things like that. But at the same time, there are people who, if entertained, they want to walk away knowing something, learning something, feel satisfied. They want their bellies full. And so, got a lot of feedback on a lot of videos, but recently, just because of all these different conversations that have been transpiring, got some good feedback on the first show, recent show, which was 2 shows ago. And then yesterday, I think it was yesterday, yeah, did another show. And so it is our third show along these lines. All right. So tonight, you're going to learn something. So get your pad and pens out. If you want to participate now, because I do want to engage the chat, but if you would rather come on the panel to participate, that would be helpful. So let me know in the chat. Let me know in the chat. 42 Tribes is crazy. Shout out to 42 Tribes is in the building. Let me know. Just at the Sesh so your comment could be highlighted, and I'll know. So if you want to participate, wherever there is participation, let me know. Otherwise, I'll do a call and response from the chat. All right. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and get started because I have ran out of things to kind of just talk. I mean, there's a lot that we could talk about, but I do want to keep it narrow. You all know me. I'm MC Iron Lung, and I will talk about everything. All right. So let's get into it. I'm gonna have to hide the chat because I want you all to be able to see everything nice and big. So again, ETM Hotep's welcome and peace. And tonight we're gonna deal with a topic of oh yeah, concordance. Okay. It would help if I have spelled that right, isn't it? It definitely would help if I spell that right, so, right? So hopefully y'all can forgive me. Concordance. Shout out to those who pointed that out to me, those who saw it but didn't want to say anything. And it's actually on the thumbnail as well. So I'm gonna have to definitely change that up. So there we have it. So let's continue. So that's good. See, you know, concordance, not condordance. I know you all were like, that's probably why you all were like, what? Concordance, is that a new term? But you know what? Truthfully, I could see people probably didn't probably because it may be a new linguistic term, and people were gonna let it slide and just allow it to just be there and just wait till I bring it up and be like, yeah, I want to know the definition of concordance. All right, so let's get it in. So concordance, linguistic homosexuality, and concordance and concord deals with agreement. All right, so we're gonna find out all the good details about this. All right, but before we do, I want to remind everyone about this particular book here, a contribution to the debate on the meaning of the place name Kemet by the Shimsu Heru research team, which includes myself, Asar, Imhotep, and the brother Sanjeti, Uncle Ra. Um, and just reminding everybody that it exists because we didn't really market it and promote the book. You know, the intent the intent of the book, it didn't it kind of incorporate a mass marketing campaign or anything like that. We weren't trying to, make it a New York bestseller or anything of that nature. It was put together as supplementary information for people at the ASCAC 2019 ASCAC conference, so that everyone can understand the arguments and the positions for this investigation into this debate on the meaning of the place name Kemet. All right, and subsequently, for over 3 years now, there are people on the YouTube streets that are just getting caught up to it, and many still refusing to read it, but have a lot to say about that particular subject matter, and it's confusing a lot of people. So, just want to tell everyone, remind everyone, the book is available on Amazon. Make sure you get it, read it, and then any and all questions and critiques are welcome. All right. Speaking for myself, you can always email me. You get the book. And as a matter of fact, two people have given me the heads up that they are reading it and they are going to be structuring their questions. And I will be bringing them on the show. I'm going to do a live stream with them so that they can ask their questions and we can address the questions in real time. All right. These are going to be real questions, people after having read the book. Also, I want to remind everyone, quality over quantity. That's what it's about. That's what's advocated. This is what I advocate, quality over quantity. Visually represented by the muddy water versus the clean water. But notice that the clean water or clean glass of water is only half full, where the muddy glass is full. And regardless of that, the choice is quality, even though you get less of it. All right. Now, as I always say, because as humans, we have to drink. So if this was the only glass of water you were presented, you would drink from it. We all would. We have to be real. We all would drink from this glass of water. Now, I don't know about drinking it all the way to the bottom of the glass, but we will all drink this water. But when presented with a clean glass of water next to it, even though it's half of the quantity, I think it's safe to say we will all choose that clean glass. All right. And so this is the stance and what we advocate. All right. Also, remind everyone of what I've been saying over the past 3 shows is kill the noise and learn to discern. All right. That's going to be our little mantra. Kill the noise and learn to discern. All right. Kill the noise, learn to discern. So, what's the objective for this live stream? The objective is to answer the question, what is grammar? Next is, what are syntactic categories? 3, what are grammatical categories? 4, what is concordance? And I spelled it correctly there. 5, some examples so that we can demonstrate. And then lastly, Q&A. All right, so we're going to keep it nice and tight right there. All right, so first up, let me just take a quick temperature of the chat, make sure everybody's still with me. Again, welcome. Appreciate anybody who's tuned in. Hope you got your pads and pens, because I want you to take notes, and because I want you all to look into the things that I'm saying. And a lot of these things that I'm explaining, that I've been explaining, are, for me, it's very repetitive, very redundant, because I've been doing this for years. And this is what I do. I teach the language, aspects of the language. So these are things that I do all the time. And we have snippets over the years in our archives as well. So anything that I may be too brief on here in these recent videos, you can always go back in our archives and ultimately register for the class, because in the classes you get everything. Okay, all the explanations, everything. Super long-winded. You think I'm MC Iron Lung on YouTube? I transform the MC Iron Lung on steroids when it comes to the classroom, the class settings. All right, where it all goes down. All right, so let's get into the first thing. What is grammar? So here's a now you all could take a screenshot, or obviously this will be in the archives, but this is a good pretty well-rounded summary of what grammar is. So I will read. Generally, grammar, which is also called morphosyntax by some, is the set of structural rules governing the composition of meaningful elements into words, phrases, clauses, and sentences in any given natural language. There are 2 basic varieties of grammar, and let me get my trusty arrow here. There are 2 basic varieties of grammar. All languages have some of both kinds, but depending on the type of language involved, there's a lot of variation in how much of each kind they have. One part of grammar is called morphology, a term which means the study of forms, from the Greek morphe or morphe, meaning form, and logos, meaning word, study, or research. It was originally used in biology to denote the study of the forms of plants and animals, but since the middle of the 19th century, it has also been used to describe the type of investigation that analyzes all those basic elements used in a language. All right. Morphology has to do with the internal economy of words. And remember that. That's a very good summary sentence, single sentence to remember. Morphology has to do with the internal economy of words. So a word like bookkeepers is analyzed as having 4 elements: book, keep, an ending er, and another ending in s. The other part, that was one part, morphology. The other part of grammar is called syntax, a term which means a putting together or in order, from the Greek syn, which means together, and tassin or tassein, meaning arrange. It has to do with the external economy of words, including word order and agreement. And we're going to get more into agreement. All right. Syntax deals with how words are combined into phrases like the young boy, clauses like that he was reading, and sentences like the young boy knew that he was reading. Thus, grammar is the superordinate term which allocates the insides of words to morphology and their outsides and combinations to syntax. Hence, the use of the term morphosyntax, which explicitly recognizes the important relationship between the two. All right, so make sure you all take a screenshot and go over this on your own time so you can fully understand what is grammar. So that is grammar. And as a side note, you all will hear me say this often, that we really can't declare that we know a language until we know its grammar. All right, I'm sure you all have heard me say that before. All right, and so these are, these are reasons why. Anybody can remember a word list, lexical inventory. But if you don't know how to actually swim in the language and do the backstroke and the freestyle, and all that stuff within the language by making use of its morphology and syntax, then you really don't know. Really don't know. In other words, to give you the analogy, it's one thing to jump into a pool of 3 feet, a pool of water that's only 3 feet high, versus jumping in a 15-foot size water and swimming. You can't stand in 3 foot of water and just stand there and say that you're a swimmer. It doesn't work that way. Go in the deep end, go where it's 15 feet and nothing to hold on to, then do something. Then you could say, all right, I'm swimming. I can swim. You see? So same thing with this. That's what I mean by that. All right. So let's keep going. So here's just a visual, and I always like to do visuals. Anybody that takes my classes, been taking my classes over the years and everything, they know that this is something that I always incorporate, and it's very, very helpful. It's one of the things that is always recommended in pedagogical systems and andragogical systems. Visuals. I mean, that's like 101 in teaching. So remember, one side is morphology, the other side of grammar is syntax. Morphology is the analysis. I'm gonna get my cursor over here, my arrow. Morphology is the analysis of the structure of words. That's the internal inventory. And syntax is the analysis of the structure of phrases and sentences. That's the external economy of words and phrases and sentences, etc. All right. So there you have that. Now here is a further breakdown of grammar. So we have grammar, which can be broken down into its two compartments: morphology and syntax. Morphology can be further broken down, and I'm not going to go into this. I'm not going to explain these. I'm just giving you like a FYI heads up. Now I do explain this in the grammar courses that I have. All right, I fully explain all this stuff, but that's definitely take up too much time. But I'm just showing you as an example. You can take a screenshot and investigate these. Morphology can be further broken down into inflection and word formation, and each of those can be further broken down with inflection, dealing with conjugation and declension, word formation, derivation, and compounding. And then on the syntax side, you have word classes and phrase classes. And then out of the word classes, you have those that are lexical and those that are functional. And then we have, of course, morphemes, free and bond. Out of the free ones, there are those that are lexical, those that are functional, and out of bound morphemes, those that are derivational, and then those that are inflectional. All right. So, and I don't expect anybody to know these off the top. I'm just only showing them as an FYI to show you how detailed that this can get. All right. So now let's move on. So that is our objective. What is grammar? So now we're going to get into syntactic categories. All right. So what are syntactic categories? And I will just read. A syntactic category is a set of words and or phrases in a language which share a significant, and that's a misspelling. I like to try to straighten this out right here, right now. A significant number of common characteristics. The classification is based on similar structure and sameness of distribution and not on meaning. Syntactic categories can be grouped as word classes or phrase classes. Word classes are traditionally defined according to their semantic definitions. However, this is not always sufficient and necessitates the need to define categories, need to define categories syntactically according to what they combine with, and morphologically according to how the words are formed. For example, syntactically, and let me get my arrow so y'all know where I am. For example, syntactically speaking, chair is a noun because it combines with the article or determiner the. Morphologically speaking, chair is a noun because it takes a plural ending such as chairs. Thus, a word class is a category of lexical items defined either by its morphological behavior or its syntactic function. Word classes are traditionally called parts of speech. Now, when I was in elementary school, when I first learned about all this stuff, that's what the teachers would call it, parts of speech. All right? So just know that parts of speech is synonymous with word classes. Word classes are traditionally called parts of speech, and their number will vary from language to language. For example, English has been traditionally classified into 8 or 9 classes, which are noun, verb, adjective, adverb, pronoun, preposition, conjunction, interjection, and article. And you see that I'm correcting these things as I go along. This information is included in my upcoming publication, and so to do these slides, this is why you see certain things that are hyphenated and things. Just as an FYI, in case you were wondering. They may be further divided into lexical categories and functional categories, which coincide with the lexical and grammatical free morphemes as previously explained. So I previously showed you all on this slide here. But like I said, we're not going to go into details on that. A phrase class is a group of words that have a canonical structure built around a head word which gives the phrase its name and usually contributes the principal meaning of the phrase. So we have noun phrases, adjectival phrases, adverbial phrases, and the reason why we call those phrases those things is because the head word would be either a noun, an adjective, or an adverb. We have prepositional phrases. The head word is a preposition. All right, that's where it gets its name from. Okay, so hopefully this is enough to inform you all on what are syntactic categories. All right, so remember that. Take a screenshot. Here's a visual. I'm gonna grab my arrow, good old arrow here. Here's the visual for syntactic categories. So we have word classes and phrase classes. On the word class side, we have lexical and functional. And just to show you all, this will be nouns, adjectives, adverbs, and verbs and adverbs. And then functional will be pronouns, prepositions, conjunctions, interjections, determiners, clitics, particles, measure words, cardinals, etc. And for phrases, we have noun phrases, adjectival phrase, verbal, adverbial, and prepositional. All right, so that's just a quick breakdown, a visual breakdown of syntactic categories. All righty. So now we should know what grammar is, and we should know what syntactic categories are. Now we're going to move on to what are grammatical categories. So what are grammatical categories? A grammatical category, also known as a grammatical feature, is a property of items within the grammar of a language. It has a number of possible values, sometimes called grammemes, which are normally mutually exclusive within a given category. Examples of frequently encountered grammatical categories include tense, which may take values such as present, past, etc. Then we have a grammatical category called number, and I need my arrow here. Number, which has values such as singular, plural, and sometimes dual. Then we have a grammatical category of gender, with values such as masculine, feminine, and neuter. Then we have a grammatical category of person, with such values as the first person involving the speaker, second person involving the hearer or listener, and third person involving any others. Then we have a grammatical category called voice, with values such as active, where the subject performs the action of a verb, or passive, where the subject doesn't perform the action. Grammatical categories may be divided by type, and they're nominal or verbal. So we have nominal ones are number, gender, person, case, degree, definiteness. And verbal, we have tense, aspect, mood, voice, etc. So these are examples. So that's what a grammatical category is, or grammatical categories are. All right. Visually, grammatical categories broken up into the two sides, nominal and verbal. Number, gender, person, case, degree, definiteness. On the verbal side, we have tense, aspect, mood, and voice. All right. So that should be sufficient to answer the question, what are grammatical categories? All right. So we're going to keep it rolling. I hope everybody's with me. Matter of fact, let me take the temperature of the chat. You all press 1 if you're still with me. If I totally lost you, press 2. Type the number 1 if you're still with me. This should be pretty straightforward. You know, I'm not trying to go dive in too deep. All right. Type number 1 if you're still with me. And these should be really reminders, because much of this is what we did learn in grade school, for those who did pay attention. you do have some people that they were present, but they weren't present. You know, they were there for the roll call, but they weren't really there in the class. All right, so I'm gonna keep it moving. All right, so I got enough. You know, I always look for at least three replies. Okay, so let's keep it moving, keep it moving, keep it moving. So that should be enough to answer those first 3 questions. And we need that information to go into what is concordance. All right, we need that information for what's to come up next. All right, so let us deal with that. So where do we leave off? We had grammatical categories. So what is concordance? To put very, very, very simply, concord or concordance, instances of concordance or concord, is simply agreement. Okay, when you hear concord in the environment of linguistics, we're talking about agreement. Okay, agreement. That's it. Don't have to go any further than that. Agreement. Okay, but here's the thing. What is in agreement? Okay, so concord is synonymous with agreement, but what is agreeing for us to say agreement? And so what you see on the screen right here is the answer. The agreement is between the syntactic categories, because now we know what those are, with the grammatical categories, now that we know what those are. So there's an interplay between the syntactic categories and the grammatical categories. This interplay has to express concord or agreement. Okay, it has to express concord or agreement. Now you're going to begin to see why I titled this Linguistic Homosexuality. All right, so we're going to deal with gender. So let's go back to the grammatical categories. Remember, one of the grammatical categories is gender in languages. All right, gender. And we're just going to deal with gender to keep it brief. All right. So, grammatical gender. And here's the thing, too. And I want everybody to get into the habit of saying grammatical gender. Don't just say gender. Okay. Get into a habit of saying grammatical gender. And here's the reason why. Is because when we just say gender, we think male and female, and then we think men and women. You know, and in linguistics, gender, grammatical gender is not always expressed like in male and female in that straightforward way. Because you have grammatical gender that has values called animate and inanimate. So animate objects versus inanimate objects. Believe it or not, that is grammatical gender. You understand? So I want y'all to understand the difference between saying just gender, which triggers, you know, just normal society gender, male and female, versus grammatical gender, which is a grammatical category. All right. So I just wanted, that's the FYI. So in our case, we're dealing with grammatical gender. So in the ancient Egyptian language, now we're going to narrow it down to the ancient Egyptian language, right? In the ancient Egyptian language, there exists two values to the grammatical category of gender. Those values are either masculine or feminine. Every single substantive in the Egyptian language is either masculine or feminine, and then some words can have the value of either one. So let me repeat that. In the ancient Egyptian language, every single substantive is either masculine or feminine. But there are some substantives that can have the value of either or, depending. Okay, so remember I'm saying that. All right. So now, by the way, I use the word substantive, and I advocate the use of the word substantive, and I'm going to explain that later as a bonus slide, as a bonus. Okay. I use substantive instead of noun. So anyway, we have masculine and feminine. So now to go back to this agreement, remember, masculine and feminine are grammatical features. They're of the grammatical category of gender, which is on the right hand side. But the agreement occurs between the grammatical categories and the syntactic categories, and we already remember what those were, right? Syntactic categories involve word classes such as adjectives, substantives, verbs, adverbs, demonstratives, etc. Okay? So now we're going to get into that. We're going to see. So here is an example. So on our objective, we know what concordance is. It's simply agreement. Now we're going to get into some examples to demonstrate what concordance is using the Egyptian language. And that's what this is here. Okay? So a system of concordance or agreement. Now, let's see. Should I show this first? No, I'll just explain here. No, actually, I do. I want to show you all this first. So I'm gonna share my screen, and I want to read something first before explaining what's on the slide here. All right, I definitely have to make this bigger. See that now. All right. So grammatical categories, and we've already went over what grammatical categories are, and that's what we read here. Okay. Now, this is going to connect into concordance. So the role of grammatical categories, and we have to remember this. This is very important. The role of grammatical categories and their interactions with syntactic categories form a system of agreement. So here's an example. For example, we say the verb loves agrees with the noun Nefertari in the sentence, Nefertari loves her husband Ahmos. See that word loves? The verb loves agrees with Nefertari, the word Nefertari. This agreement is partially based on the category of number. Remember, there's a grammatical category called number, single, plural, dual. That is whether a noun is singular or plural. It is also based on the category of person, which covers the distinctions of the first person involving the speaker, second person involving the listener, third person involving any others. The different forms of English pronouns can be described in terms of person and number. We use I for first person singular, you for second person singular, and he, she, it, or in this case, Nefertari, for third person singular. So the word Nefertari is third person singular. And so with a third person singular noun or substantive, we have to use the verb in this form. So we use the verb loves and not love. We have to put the S on there to agree with the noun. We can't say Nefertari love her husband Ahmos. That would be grammatically incorrect, and you would get a mark on your paper. We have to say Nefertari loves her husband. So this forms concordance. Okay, concord. All right. So to continue, in addition, the form of the verb must be described in terms of another category called tense. In this case, the verb loves is the present tense, which is different from the past tense loved, ed. The sentence is also an active voice describing what Nefertari does, that is, she performs the action of the verb. An alternative would be the passive voice, which can be used to describe what happens to Nefertari. That is, she doesn't perform the action, as in the sentence, if we change it, Nefertari is loved by her husband, Ahmos. Or simply, Nefertari is loved. That would be a passive form. Okay? So I just wanted to kind of go over that simple example that we use all the time. All right? Even if you're not aware of concordance or agreement, if you're speaking English, as I am right now, you're utilizing it without knowing. Obviously, if you don't know. But if you know, it's not something that we talk about, but we use it. All right? So now let's get back to some ancient Egyptian examples, a brief example here. All right, so now we're back here. So here's to demonstrate a system of agreement or concordance. Now we have some nouns or substantives. Like, again, I prefer to call these substantives, but I know that that's new to a lot of people. So I will bounce back and forth from noun to substantive. So we have substantive majah, a substantive majat, and a substantive amat. Okay, the first one is masculine. The other two are feminine in grammatical gender. So keep that in mind. Grammatical gender. I have it bold over here. All right. Now, here's where the system of concordance comes into play. The grammatical gender category is the trigger that sets up this system of concordance, meaning that it is grammatical gender. The purpose of grammatical gender is to be this trigger. So if the substantive is grammatically masculine and singular, in this case where you're dealing with gender and number, then the other word classes that are associated with it must agree in gender and number as well. So if the substantive is masculine, then the adjective, if there's one associated with it, also has to be masculine. Hence why I said in the title, linguistic homosexuality. The word homo means same and then you have same sex. So in this case, it's homogenderality. Because if the substantive is masculine, the adjective has to be the same, masculine. If the substantive is feminine, as we have majat, the adjective has to also be the same, which is feminine, homogenderality. All right, we have another feminine, amat, the adjective kemet associated with it. Now that's the substantive and adjective demonstration or relationship. Even if there are demonstratives involved that are associated with the word, it too must agree and be of a homo gender, the same gender. So the demonstrative pen is a masculine singular demonstrative. It means that or this. The demonstrative ten, as you see in the other two, is the feminine form for the word this or that. So the word majah means book. So majah desher pen is this red book or scroll. Really, they didn't have books like we have today. This red roll or scroll. The next one is the same, saying the exact same thing. The meaning does not change. The meaning does not change. This is saying the same thing. This red roll or scroll. But because it's feminine, the adjective must be feminine and the demonstrative must be feminine. Another one, amat. This black mud. You see that? Homogenderality or linguistic homosexuality. That's what I put in the title. So now I hope you all understand how this works. Okay? Now the significance of this. So we've already answered the question, but the significance of this is this. I'm gonna give you a real-time example. Let's say that there's a word. Let me see. Let me just pull any one of these words. Let's just pull this one. So let's say there was a word majah, and it's used now. These words are not going to exist on a papyrus roll or on a temple wall all by itself. And that's another thing that I have to remind everyone. A lot of things that people that we tend to talk about, we take for granted. These things don't exist in isolation. You're never going to find an Egyptian temple wall with just one glyph or just one word. You're not going to find a papyrus roll with just one glyph or one word. They all have environments to them. All right, I just gotta remind everyone of that. But let's say that this word here is used in a sentence. You're looking at a sentence, right? The word majah. And let me go back and pull this. Both of these. Let's say this was the sentence here. We have majah desher, and put it where, make sure y'all can see it. Majah desher 10. Suppose this is what we see in the glyphs. Now, I don't have the glyphs on the screen, but let's say that the glyphs that has no mark for a T. But here's the thing. If the glyph is absent, but is present in the other syntactic categories, then we know by way of concordance or agreement that this substantive must be feminine, even though we don't see the T or the Gardner code X1 raised bread loaf. And this is the clue on how scholars uncovered where scribes would omit things out of the glyphs. They would omit a bread loaf. They would omit a quail chick that represents a Y. A W. They would omit the double reed leaf or the slanted strokes in various different texts. But you can tell that it's there because of clues like concordance. So again, if I had the glyphs on the screen and there was an absent of a bread loaf for this particular word here, I know y'all can't see my cursor. Let me get my arrow here. For this particular word here, if there was no bread loaf in the glyphs, but you see Netcher does have a bread loaf, and you see 10 as a demonstrative having the bread loaf, then you know that the bread loaf was simply omitted. And you know that this word is in actuality majat. And when there are glyphs omitted, what we tend to do is we tend to put it in parentheses to visually show that it is an omission in the glyphs. So that will be how we would do it. Majat Desheret 10. This red book. All right. So, quick overview again. We have reached all of our objectives. We have defined grammar. We have defined syntactic categories. We have defined grammatical categories. We now should know what is concordance. We have seen examples in English and in Rodney Kemet. And now, before we get into a Q&A, I want to give 2 bonus pieces of information. This is one of them, and I need you all to really, really pay close attention to this. This is derivational morphemes versus inflectional morphemes. Now, if you've never heard those terms before, it may sound, like deep and heavy. But, it's very simple. Derivational comes from derive. Inflectional, obviously, inflect, something that's inflected, changed. So the difference between derivational and inflectional morphemes, I'm using these 3 examples to illustrate this. This first word here is the word hefa. It's a verb. It means to shuffle or to wind, to twist, to shuffle, to wind. All right, it's a verb. By adding the W, it changes from a verb into a substantive, aka noun. So it went from a verb to a noun. And you'll often hear this process be described as nominalized, a nominalization process. Okay? And to do that, a derivational morpheme had to be added to the verb. So this quail chick that you see here is a derivational morpheme. Now, the reason why it's not inflectional, just to give you a brief description of between the two, derivational morphemes changes word classes. So if a word is of one class and then adding an ending to it causes it to change word class, that ending is therefore derivation. That is a process of derivation. A verb changing into a noun is a derivational process. Okay? So this W is a derivational morpheme, but it's still transliterated as a W. Now keep this in mind. Let's look at the third example. The third example is, so the second one is hafa'u. The first one is hafa, a verb. Hafa'u, a substantive. Okay? You see the added quail chick here. And the determinative. The last one is hafa'u'u. I want you to notice that we have a W and another W. This W is a derivational morpheme, changing the verb to a substantive, but the next W is an inflectional morpheme. So what is inflection? Inflection changes the grammatical categories. Derivation changes word class, which is a syntactic thing. So the inflectional ending of W is to take care of the grammatical category of number. It's plural. That W is a morpheme of plurality. And that is the masculine plural ending. So hafa'u is the plural of hafa'u. That's it. There's no class change. This is a substantive. This is a substantive. This one happens to be singular. This one is plural. But it's in the same class. So there's no derivation. Okay? So what is this saying? This saying that this W is agentive in the first one and plural in the third one. Two totally different morphemes, but they're represented with the same morph that we visually see, which is the letter W. Now, what's the significance of this? Just because you see a W on the end of a word does not mean it's plural. Likewise, just because you see a T on the end of a word does not mean it's feminine. All right, we have to keep these things in mind, and that's a plus lesson, and I go to it in more detail in our archives. Years ago, I did a show on portmanteau morphemes or portmanteau morphs. So check that out for more information on that. But I felt the need to bring it up tonight because we're talking about the morphology side of grammar. And so this is the level of detail that you have to know in order to really get busy in this language. All right. So when you hear me say things like, and I stress the importance of studying the grammar and to differentiate people who memorize glyphs and deal with the language just through a dictionary, that's not going to cut it. That's not scholarship. Okay? That's more of a hobbyist way of dealing with things, which is cool. I'm not knocking hobbies at all. But just don't confuse the two is the point that I would like to make with that. All right? Don't confuse the two. All right? So that was one bonus. Second bonus is here. As you can see, the date, this is from a slide from 4 years ago. Everything I'm talking about, is, like I said, in our archives, at least 3 years old and before. All right. So definitely just scroll on down and you'll see them. But this is important. So I want to share this with everyone. This is an important issue too that I do want to straighten out. And it's titled The Two Types of Nouns. And I have nouns in quotations for a reason. All right. Now, as far as visually a diagram, you have the word nomen here at the top. Nomen is the Latin word for noun. Okay? There are two types of nomens. That is, two types of nouns. The first type of noun is called, in Latin, substantivum. The second type of noun or nomen in Latin is called adjectivum. All right. This is why I use substantive and I do not use the word noun. It's for these reasons that I'm sharing with y'all right now. So because the nouns or nomens are of two varieties, two types, substantivum, adjectivum, they are called or were called nomen substantivum versus nomen adjectivum. They're both nouns. So now I'm just going to read here. In Latin, the word nomen is name or noun, from where we get our word noun. There has always been two types of nouns, substantives and adjectives. In English, we call substantives nouns, and by doing this, we hide the very fact that nouns and adjectives are the same, except adjectives denote an entity and a property, whereas a noun denotes an entity only. This is even reflected in the very word adjective, which means added near. That's what the word adjective means. So substantives deal with entities and adjectives deal with entities plus properties, plus their properties. Now, here's the thing. Nomen is noun. So in English, we do a disservice by calling substantive nouns because we lose this hierarchy. You see this hierarchy? This is the higher level, and then it's further broken down into two. But if we call this noun, then in English, we think nouns are something different than adjectives, when they're two ends of the same stick. All adjectives are nouns. I repeat, all adjectives are nouns. All substantives are nouns. But if we call substantives nouns, then you're gonna imagine or conceptualize in your mind that adjectives are not nouns. But they are, and they always been. So I'm sharing this to get the wording correct and to burn in everyone's mind to use these things correctly. And again, this is the difference between those who actually deal with the details of grammar versus those who surf the surface of the water and only deal with dictionaries and memorizing some glyphs. All right. This is the level that you have to go to in order to start real investigations. These are the kind of tools and things that you're going to need to know to really dig deep and investigate things. And like I said, I don't knock people doing whatever they do. My whole thing is just don't confuse the two. Don't confuse a hobby for a profession. Don't confuse people who actually know the grammar versus people who flip through dictionaries. All right. There's a big difference. All right. So with all of that being said, I think we are at the bottom for the Q&A. So I'm going to tune back into the chat, pop the chat back up here. And now I can see the chat again. Appreciate anybody who is tuned in. I've been live for an hour. I do not want to make this video long. So if you have any questions for me based on anything that I said tonight, shoot, fire away. Fire away. Let's go. Let's get through them. All right. Well, first of all, I have a question for you all. If you followed everything I said and you know everything is clear, then type 1. Type 1 for me. And keep in mind that I'm being brief in all of my explanations, and there's a lot more that could be said. And I do encourage people to register to the classes. I've been teaching the ancient Egyptian language for over 10 years now. And so I have experience on different ways of explaining these concepts. And I've learned different sweet spots on how to explain it, you know, depending on who who I'm dealing with and things like that. And so I really appreciate the opportunities that I've had and the people that have been interested enough for me to teach over all of these years. I've taught people from all over the world now, I can say. Not in every country, but pretty much all over the world. On the continent of Africa, in Europe, and definitely in the United States. Yep. One person in the Middle East. I don't think anybody in Asia yet, or Australia. But we'll see. So Q&A, 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 Q&A. And listen, if I don't see any questions, I'm gonna assume that everybody. Oh, also in the Caribbeans, definitely cannot leave out the Caribbeans. Man, what is wrong with me, boy? Cannot leave out the Caribbeans. Uncoma definitely keeping me in check on that. Um, but if I don't see any questions, I'm gonna assume that listen, y'all got it, and you don't need me to explain anything. So while I'm waiting for questions, um, I do want to give you a familiar example that a lot more people may be familiar with when it comes to concordance, right? And so if there's anybody in the chat right now that speaks Spanish or French, then keep me honest. So I'm just going to use this here. In Spanish, we have the same linguistic homosexuality. All right. Now, I termed it that way, because I want people to be like, wait a minute, what is Wujao talking about? Linguistic homosexuality. But if you think about it, when you think of homosexuality, you're thinking about humans, and stuff like that. That's why I put linguistic homosexuality, because that's what this actually is. But if we were to play around with that in a better way, we would say homogenderality. All right, because it's the same gender. It has to be the same gender. That's what concordance is. Okay. But anyway, Spanish does the same thing. Now, I took Spanish in school, and I was actually really, really good at it. But from the time that I studied and was immersed in it till now, so much time went by, I've definitely lost my vocabulary. I still have a tongue. So when I see words, I can pronounce them. But I definitely lost vocabulary and meanings and stuff. I would not tell anybody that I speak Spanish at all. At one point, though, I was getting there. But anyway, my point, though, is Spanish does the same thing. I didn't take French, but I'm aware that French does the same thing as well. So, for example, in Spanish, you have this word here, chica. Okay, chica. And it's a substantive, it means girl, right? You have the equivalent, chico, boy. Now, if I want to say the girl and the boy, I would have to add a definite article in front of it, these two words. But guess what? The definite article must be homogendered. It must be of the same gender. Chica is feminine. So the definite article would have to be la chica. And in the case of the boy, or the masculine substantive, it would have to be el chico, la chica. Same thing. So I'm sure you are familiar with those words. I try to pick a word that y'all heard before. La chica, el chico. You gotta say that with a deep voice. El chico, abuelita, la chica que viene me. Let me stop. Let me stop. Oh, y'all gonna get me started. But hopefully y'all understand that. All right, so now back to the chat. Just wanted to kind of share that to buy y'all some time to post your questions. So I'm looking for questions. Again, I do not want this video to be too long, so I'm strictly looking for questions. All right. Um, what's question in Spanish? Pregunta, preguntes, pregunta, pregunta. Boy, I'm telling you, see, I lost my vocabulary. Lost my vocabulary. Man. Yo hablo español un poquito at this point. Used to be able to speak it and really, really, really well. Pass off as a Dominican or something. All right, so I'm looking for questions. I don't see. Let's see. Let me back up. I probably missed some. Okay. I do see some questions. So let me get to it. So Juhudi Ma'at asks, are these feminine words of concordance forms always shown in dictionaries? That's a very good question, Jehudi, and the short answer is no. And I'm glad you asked that, man, because I totally forgot. In dictionaries for the ancient Egyptian and other foreign languages. Let's back up. Let's pump the brakes a bit. Pump the brakes. We have to understand that not all dictionaries are made the same or of the same type. They're different types of dictionaries. And so we have to keep in mind, if you look at Merriam-Webster dictionary for the English language, that is a dictionary, right? You open it, you see lexical entries, you see what we call definitions, and you see senses. Sense number one, or we say definition number one, definition number two, definition number three of the same word, right? And we call that dictionary. But now, if you open up an Egyptian quote unquote dictionary, those are not definitions. We have to understand that. Let me be clear, family. Every time I say that, people say I sound like the brother Jabari. Let me be clear, family. Does he say it like that? Let me be clear, family. And he put his hand. If I have my camera on, y'all be able to see me put my hand up like how the brother Jabari does when he gets serious. Boy, he wants you to pay attention now. Let me be clear, family. No, but seriously. Actually, let us actually be clear though. When you open up these Egyptian dictionaries, those are not definitions in the sense that how what we call English dictionaries. Those are really word swapping manuals. They're just word swapping, one for ones or estimations. That's all it is. If you look up the word majat in the Egyptian dictionary, you're going to see next to it book. That's not a definition. That's very, very shallow. It's very shallow. So people who live in dictionaries, they live in shallow terrain. It's not deep. All right, but anyway, so I appreciate your question, Judy. But the answer is no. So again, no, they don't. These lexical entries, they don't have all the different forms of the word. Even the verb forms, they only put a certain verb form in the dictionaries. But the verbs can go through conjugation. There's so many different forms of these words that you will not see in the dictionaries. Like, for instance, now they will have some, and they only do the ones that are popular. Ones that are popular. All right. So anyway, there you have it. Let's keep going on. So Christopher Withers is asking the question, could you speak the gender of locations in Rodney Kemet? All right, that's a good question. Toponyms are usually, now this is not a 100% end all be all rule, but toponyms for the most part in the ancient Egyptian language are grammatically feminine. Okay? Now, here's the reason why. Places in the psyche of the ancient Egyptians were expressed with a marker, with a morphemic marker for the abstraction. So the abstract and the idea of place in space and time were abstract concepts. And these are marked by a bread loaf, a T. And so because the T mark for abstractions match the T that's also used to mark grammatical feminine words, the two combine. And so the concordance takes place to trigger feminine agreement. So I'll give you an example. I'm going to give you all an example. I actually have an example. Let me see if I can pull it up really quick here. Can I pull it up really quick here? Really quick. Let me find it. I'm going to find it. I'm going to find it. And here we are. Right here. Right here. I have to shrink. Matter of fact, let me just show you all this here. I will go down here. All right. I'll start here. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to start here. We're going to read. And y'all thank the brother Chris for his question. Either thank him or blame him. All right. So here we are. So again, these are this is information that is going to be put forth in the first quarter of next year. In the full grammar textbook. But anyway, so here I am talking about singular forms. All right, I'm talking about grammatical number. All right, the grammatical feature of number in singular forms. So I'm just going to read here because it's going to get into what Chris had just asked about. So in singular form, so the singular form of masculine substantives generally have no marked endings for gender or number. That is, they show no specific grammatical termination, which is represented as a null or zero with a slash through it. So here's some examples. So we have Z or C, man, sa, son, sin, brother, Netcher, God. All these are masculine and singular. All right. Now notice that there's no special ending within these words here in the glyphs. Now, there are exceptions. Some, however, are derived forms, and I did give this example earlier with the snake one, and have a quail chick as the ending to the root and not separated by a dot in transliteration. Okay? So, for example, here are 3 examples. We have hafa'u, which is snake. It comes from the verb hafa, which means to twist, to wind. All right? We have wedhu, which is an altar. It comes from the verb wedeh, which means to offer. We have shemsu, follower, from the verb shemes, which means to follow. So this these W's here are, 1, they're derivational morphemes. 2, the semantic meaning of these morphemes is agentive. So it's changing the verb and adding the agent on there and producing one who twists. So a snake is really one who twists. An altar is a thing that offers. A follower is one who follows. Okay? The agent. Now to continue, get into Chris thing. Now mind you, these are all plus lesson nuggets now. So I hope y'all are really taking this stuff in and whatnot. So the singular of feminine substantives are generally marked with the bread loaf, and we transliterate it as a T, ending that is added to the root, making them easy to identify. However, there are certain feminine substantives that are unmarked. For example, and here's where it comes into Chris's question, geographical terms. It is important to keep in mind that the feminine bread loaf or T is an added ending and not an original part of the substantive itself. That's very important. Now, in writing, the feminine T ending is attached directly to the root, preceding the determinatives. That's important to know as well, if there are any. Here's some examples. So we have set, which is the word for woman. You see the bread loaf is before the determinative. You have sat, which is daughter, bread loaf before the determinative. Senet, sister, and Netcheret, goddess. Now note, the feminine T ending is disregarded in alphabetizing words in some dictionaries. So this is where the dictionaries come into play. All right. Of how it's listed in the dictionaries. Now, some substantives ending in T in the singular are nevertheless masculine. So just because it ends in T doesn't mean it's automatically feminine, y'all. And I show examples right here. So here are some examples. Ket, wood. Just because you see that bread loaf or T here doesn't mean it's feminine. That's why when we notate it, we do not separate it with a dot. The word it, father, eat, which is the word for father. Suit or sweat, as some people may pronounce it, breeze. Tut, as in the word tut ankh amen. Nachet, victory. Wemet, thickness. Met, wet. Chenet, cheneret. Mut, not mut as in mother, but mut as in to die, dead. Eat, grain. All of these are grammatically masculine, but they have a bread loaf there. All right? And this demonstrates and proves or demonstrates evidence for what I said earlier, that the T, just because you see a bread loaf and we transliterate it as a T, that T is also underneath it on a morphemic level is the concept of abstraction. Also, all right. Now, to hit the bullseye on to Chris's questions, many geographical terms, country, cities, nomes, etc., and certain anthroponyms do not show the characteristic T ending, but function grammatically as feminine substantives nonetheless. The place name, here's the example. The place name Kash, which is people say Kush, is an example in this phrase. We have Kash Chasit. You see here, Kash Chasit. And they translate it as Val Kush. Now, what's important about this? This example of gender agreement between a substantive and adjective, where the adjective chesi, if I can highlight it, chesi, as this way, is masculine, but it is feminine in this set here. It's chasit. And the reason why it's chasit is because kash or kush is feminine, even though you don't see the T. Nobody says kushet. Nobody in the world pronounces kush as kushet, but it is feminine. It was viewed in the psyche of the ancient Egyptians as grammatically feminine, which is why they use feminine adjectives in what? Concordance. Say it with me. Concordance. No, but concordance. And so here are some more grammatically masculine, words here that offer the same thing. So we have two masculine and two feminine. So buto or P, and then you have chenu, which is Libya, represent masculine. Setet is Asia, or Sechet, Asia is feminine. And Abju, see, Abju doesn't have a T. You don't see the bread loaf. But Abju is a feminine substantive. It's feminine. Abydos, that's feminine. All right. So, Chris, hopefully that thoroughly answers your question. And now back to the questions. All right. So where are we at? Where are we? Okay, Tahuti. So I'm gonna get through this. I'm trying to do this in 5 minutes, y'all. What you are saying is that you have to learn or know about the grammar rules because the language has expressions that we need to know. Absolutely. But it goes for any language. Why would anybody handicap themselves? See, here's the thing. If I start on a journey to become a Muslim, and it's just my choice as an adult, I'm saying, hey, I like what I'm hearing about Islam and things like that. You know, I like different aspects of it. I want to be the best Muslim I can be. Why would I handicap myself in becoming the best Muslim that I could be by not learning Arabic when I could learn Arabic and it would greatly help me become the best Muslim that I could possibly be? Because I could submerge myself into the culture. Why? Because the Islamic culture is conveyed by way of the Arabic language. The holy book of Islam is written in Arabic. I would have to know the Arabic idioms to understand the book. So if I'm going to talk about Egypt, ancient Egypt, or study ancient Egypt, or wherever, it's best that I learn the language. Okay? Not just know what's a monoliteral, biliteral, triliteral, and then learn how to word order within the dictionary to look up words in the dictionary, and then appeal to authority. Well, the dictionary says this, therefore it must be. That's so limiting. That's so shallow, and that's what I'm saying. And there's nothing, if that's okay for people to do that, but we just can't confuse that kind of behavior and that stuff with real stuff or more in-depth stuff. So that's exactly what I'm saying. There. So let me see any other questions. Donnie, I'm not sure if that was a question. Okay, you said feminine. All right, let's keep on going. I'm trying to go down. Let's keep on going. Let's keep on going. I'm just going down the list, y'all. I'm gonna keep going. Shout out to sister Monica Lamb. Everything is in the building. Donnie Williams in the building. I'm just seeing people that I didn't shout out. Fighting to this. FX Nugget. I'm looking for questions, you all. Like I said, I do not want this video to be too long. We have Deshareb in the building. Deshareb, yeah, I hope you if you didn't see if you weren't here the whole time, definitely go back and watch it, because I know yesterday you were giving out misinformation about the duel there. And one of these days I'm gonna have to get you on the panel, Deshareb. We're gonna have to have a one-on-one discussion, because you've been and you're welcome. You know, you're welcome on the chat. You're welcome in the chat and everything. But you've been in the chat for quite a while and everything. And but you tend to disagree, and so I'm trying to figure it out. Like what is it all about? And I like to shoot things straight. Let's get right at it. So one of these days, gotta get you on the panel. Okay. Indonesia 5000 says, Emike can see the future. I bet the panel also brings up plagiarism. Folks not having certain degrees. Oh, okay. Y'all having your own conversation. Hope y'all been paying attention. And not having a sidebar conversation too much. Now I'm going down the list. I'm just looking for questions, y'all. If y'all have questions, fire away, because like I said, I don't want these videos, not these, to be too long. And I don't see a question. I don't see any more questions. Nope. Indonesia says, so when folks emphasize the feminine T rule, they are screaming they don't really know grammar. Exactly. They don't. They do not understand grammar. And you can tell, because here's the thing, Indonesia, you can tell. See, when somebody, like, okay, you can tell the difference. You can tell when somebody's being pseudo, as they say, quote unquote pseudo, is because they'll use technical terms but wrong. So they'll hear a technical term, or they try to memorize the technical terms to sound technical, but they use them in an inappropriate way. I call it the Oswald Bates syndrome. If you're familiar with In Living Color, there's a character that Damon Wayans played, Oswald Bates, and he's always talking, these technical terms and whatnot. If y'all familiar with that, that's what I call it, and that's one of the indicators of pseudoism and pseudoscience is when people use technical or specialized nomenclature out of their proper use. They misuse it. But anyway, so yes, the answer is yes. People talking about feminine T rule, feminine T rule. And there's actually no feminine T rule to be described as that, like that. It's about concordance. It's grammatical gender. And it's crazy. It's the craziest thing. It's the craziest thing. What else? Let's see. I'm going to keep going down. Oh, Sarah says, I have a question. All right. I don't see the question yet, so I guess he's typing it up. Zane. Yeah, I don't see any questions. So I am. Oh, okay. Here's a question. Donnie is saying, if you're still taking questions, abidos, how is it feminine? I'm confused. At Sesh, if not, maybe we can revisit some other time. I've been multitasking over the show. Yeah, okay. Because the fact that you asked me that question, you must have missed the show that I just did. What I've been talking about tonight. It's through concordance that we can tell the grammatical gender of words. Grammatical gender, or gender, is a grammatical category that triggers concordance, aka agreement. Okay, and this is why. And see, I'm using the word homosexuality as a shock value because you'll remember this. Because it's saying it's homogenderality, really. It's the same gender. If the substantive is feminine, the adjectives and demonstratives that are associated with it must also be feminine, which is the word homo. The word homo means same. Gender is gender. I say homosexuality because that's a good way to remember it, because people, that's a polarized word around here. Homosexuality. Kemet is gay. Type of thing. But anyway, so yes, Donnie, abidos or abju is feminine because when it's used in concordance with other syntactic words in a syntactic environment, or as we call syntagmatic environment, you'll see that feminine words are used with it, not masculine. Okay, so abju is feminine. Just like Kush. I gave the example of Kush. Kush is feminine. Even though we do not see it's grammatically feminine, even though we don't see a bread loaf for that word. It was conceived in the mind as feminine because that's why they agreed with it with feminine adjectives. All right. So remember that. He said that last comment was not peer reviewed. Hey, this whole live stream is not peer reviewed. Oh my goodness, boy. Oh wow. I just got word that Shaka and Dookie Kemet tried to get me out the Diop conference. That's crazy. Now listen, if that's true, if that's true, then see, here's the thing, y'all, and I need everybody. We got 33 people watching this video right now. First of all, take a moment and like the video. All right, take a moment and like the video. whatever algorithms YouTube use, the more likes, obviously, or whatever, however that goes. Thumb up the video, like the video. Even if you don't like the video or don't like what I'm saying, thumb it up. Just invert it. Just think thumb up means you dislike it if you don't like it. But anyway, here's the thing. The circus community has gone out of control. We got people that's hating so much that they're trying to contact the TLA database administration and trying to report us to them. Not trying, they report it, thinking that the TLA is going to say something negative or whatever the case is, and that backfired. Then, if this is true, if people are trying to prevent Asar from participating or being in the DIOP conference, this stuff is getting out of control. But it's very telling and revealing, because it's sad, and this is the difference between hollership and this pseudo scholarship type stuff versus real scholarship. And this is what it's come down to, and this is what I keep saying. People are lowering the bar, and it's getting all the attention. And so it continues, just like skinny jeans and wearing your jeans halfway down your legs. How did we get there? How did that become popular? How in the world did jeans hanging off become popular? We didn't just wake up and then it happened. No, it's a gradual thing. And because people entertain it, people don't say anything, and it becomes the norm. So this kind of stuff, snitching, is now the norm. Trying to block people out of journals, block people out of conferences has become the norm. And the worst part about it is these people are being supported. And I just can't do it. I don't have any respect for that behavior. None. And I shoot it straight. I'll say it here, I'll say it now, and I'll say it in anybody's face. Straight like that. I don't have no respect for that kind of behavior. I'm not built that way. I don't come from that background. So keep that, miss me with that. Save that for somewhere else, man, for real, because that's not cool at all. And it's sad. That's my stance. I'm only one person. And if I'm only one person, I'm the minority. I know not to be delusional enough to think that matters. My opinion and my stance, if alone, it's not going to matter. It's not going to change anything. So what Wujahu said. I get it. I already understand that. But it's sad, though, because more people should be seeing this stuff as a problem. More people should be seeing this stuff as a problem. This divisiveness, as they call it, that's going on. There's no cooperative scholarship going on. It is cooperative hollership and set tripping. Who can hate on who? People are not even really researching. People are Googling. This is what people do. They peep your videos. They peep what you say, and then they go look for something to counter it. And they call that studying. They call that scholarship. They will Google something. They will even spend money to buy a book that they can't even read. A whole book written in French, can't even read it. They'll buy it just to be able to say they got it and then try to find something to argue. Silly, man. So anyway, like I said, I'm looking for some questions. Keep on going down. All right, that's good news right there. If that's the case, he said, nope. All right. Let's keep going. I'm going down. So sorry about that. I had a little vent right there. Blame Asar Motep, man. Asar made me vent, boy. Yep, the emotionals. All right, let's keep going. By the way, listen, y'all, subscribe to Jehudi Ma'at's channel because the last two videos are hilarious. It's hilarious. And matter of fact, I should play them. Boy, I would even play. Let me pull up Jehudi's YouTube because it involves me, so that's why I'm aware of these videos right here. Let's see. I'm just making sure I don't have any questions because I'm gonna end the show on on these things. Oh, you know what? Yeah. I'm gonna let y'all go over to Jehudi Ma'a's channel and watch his last two videos. As a matter of fact, Jehudi, I meant to tell you, I checked out your what was that? The video game, Assassin's Creed or whatever. Listen, man, you're definitely a better person than me because if I ever get see, that's why I can't buy any video game consoles or video games because I will get swallowed up. Y'all will never see me again. That's how much of a gamer I used to be, like way back in the day. And yeah, I would never come. I wouldn't even come up for air, especially that game. The way that game was looking, because I've never seen the game because I stay away from that because I would get drawn in. And I saw Jehudi Maya was playing Assassin's Creed, but it was like an Egyptian version. It had Taharka in there and and stuff like that. I was like, wow. But anyway, y'all subscribe to Jehudi Maya's channel and watch those videos because it's about uh when I was on Smash's channel with dealing with the whole Athribis type of thing. And so when you slow it down and when you see what Jehudi how Jehudi does his videos and go through all the archives, you'll see when the conversation is slowed down that you'll see how silly everything is. So anyway, I don't want to be too long, um, and all that good stuff. But I appreciate everybody tuned in. Are there any last minute questions? 2 minutes. I got 2 minutes. That is 120 seconds and counting. Any last questions? Because I don't want to leave anybody out. I really appreciate those who take time to tune in. Like I said, with me, it's about quality over quantity. I don't need a 1,200 viewers or whatever. If those 1,200 viewers are not up to what I consider quality, straight up. Who would want 1,200 trolls versus 50 people who are like on point? I would choose the 50 every day, all day. Any last minute questions? Okay, so a quick summary. I'll take this time to do a quick summary. So again, the title of tonight's discussion was Concordance, and I definitely don't get on me too bad for misspelling concordance in the thumbnail. I'm definitely gonna change that. At first I had Concordance, but Concordance, and I subtitled Linguistic Homosexuality. So now y'all know what I meant by that. Linguistic homosexuality. It's really homogenderality because that's exactly what concordance is. When the syntactic category has to agree with the grammatical category by using the same grammatical gender. So if there's a feminine substantive, the adjectives and demonstratives must also be feminine. Feminine on feminine is homo. The word homo means same. Okay, same in that case. Same. Not homo as in man. That's a different word, homo. That's a homonym. Homo. Homophone, actually, and homograph. But that homo means same. So this homo means same. So it's the same gender. So that's what I mean by linguistic homosexuality. All right. So keep it plain and simple. Our objectives for today was to answer the questions: what is grammar? What are syntactic categories? What are grammatical categories? What is concordance? Show some examples, and then Q&A. And we have achieved all of the above under 2 hours. So I'm going to try to keep this structure going. Bite-sized videos, not those 4-hour marathons, 6-hour marathons that I also don't mind doing. but I'm gonna try to keep these like that. So I really appreciate everybody tuned in. Hope you learned something. If you think of questions after the fact, then you can always bring it up on the next live, or inbox me, or email me, and I get emails. The feedback has been great on these kind of shows, and some people are new to the conversation, so they are going back in the archives, and then they're having these questions or giving me feedback, and it's good. So this is like motivating, or adding some motivational fuel into all of this, because I'm starting to look pessimistically at the so-called conscious community, like there's no hope, we're doomed. The behavior that I'm seeing and how people are running. I mean, if it got to the point where people are glorifying going to the law, like on top of reporting the TLA and now trying to block people from conferences and journals, but on top of that, comments were made about filing lawsuits. This is about 2 months ago. I don't know if y'all remember that. Not on this channel, but on other channels. And people are okay with that. People are supportive of that kind of mentality. And see, when that happens, it's like, nah, that's not me. So I don't know what happened. Don't associate me with any of that stuff at all. Don't do that. But again, I appreciate everyone tuned in, and I don't see any last minute things. So yeah, so that was it. So with that, I am going to end this, and I'll see y'all next time. Sherman Hotep.
Without education, I believe there will be no Kemet.